What's up everyone? In this video I'm going to show you how to use functions in Python. So I have a repo set up here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the clone. And there's the folder. So let's open this up with VS Code. So let's do open folder, functions, open, create our script here. So functions.py. And we'll do our classic print hello world to make sure it's all hooked up. Do a terminal and Python 3 functions.py hello world. Alright, so let's dig into functions a little bit here. So functions are really useful for segmenting your code. So rather than just trying to write everything in a linear sequential pattern, we can write functions and then call them as needed. So let me just give just a really simple example of a function. So the way to do a function, you do def, which is a keyword, so def and then your function name. So I'm going to call this, let's say print, no, let me actually go with print param. And it's going to accept a string that's going to be our output. So let's call this output stir. And then you do a colon, and then everything that's within this indent right here, this is all going to be a part of the function code. And then once you break out of the indent, this right here, this is going to be main. So this is code that just executes like how you've seen, just in a sequential manner. So in this function, we're just going to print whatever's passed to it. And this right here, this output stir, this is a parameter. So this allows us to pass data into the function and then use it there. So this will make probably more sense with an example. So all I'm going to do from within the function is just print the output string. So that's just going to print it to the terminal. And then from main, let's call that function. So you call it by literally just calling it by name, and then let's pass hello world to it. So what I'm expecting here is when we get to this print param, we're going to call this function, we're passing it this string as a parameter, and then we're just going to output that string. So we should see hello world print to the console, but it's going through this print param function. So that's how it runs, and it did indeed work. So that's a really simple example of a function. It doesn't really give you a good idea of the use, but functions are extremely important. So let me give you a more meaningful example. Alright, so let's do an example here involving Pythagorean theorem. So if you're not familiar with Pythagorean theorem, it is that when a triangle, a right triangle, so this is a 90-degree angle, this side A, and then this side B. So if we take A squared plus B squared, it'll give us this side, C squared. And then from there, you can do the square roots and figure out basically the length of this line right here, just by knowing these two lines. It's super useful. It's kind of a fundamental in mathematics. It's not super important that you understand this. I just wanted to give an example of how we could use functions, and this is just a kind of practical use case. Alright, so let's jump into the code here. So we're going to want to do a function that is the Pythagorean theorem. So let's call this Pythag, and it's going to accept two arguments. We'll call them A and B because those are the two sides. And then we're also going to want to take that as an input. So print what is the length of side A, and then we'll take that as an input. So A equals int input. And then just do the same for B. So what is the length of side B? B equals int input. And now we want to call our function and pass A and B. So we still need to define what goes on within Pythag. So put a colon there, and we're going to want to say, so C, so the long side, the hypotenuse, is going to equal something. So the way to do this, we actually need the square root function. It's not really important why. So I'll just show you how to do that. So what we can do is from math import square root, like that. And then we'll do C equals, it's the square root of A times A plus B times B, right? So we're just taking the square root of A squared plus B squared, and that'll give us C here. So then we're going to, let's just print C at the moment. Let's see if this works. So let me run this. So what is the length of side A? Let's say 3. What is the length of side B? Let's say 4. And then this outputs 5, which is, so if we did 3 squared, 9, plus 4 squared, 16, that would equal 25, and the square root of 25 is 5. So that makes sense. But let's actually do this a little bit different. Let's actually return C, so you can see this. So when we return something from a function, it's going to go back to whatever called that function. And we would want to set this equal to a variable. Well, we don't necessarily have to. We could directly output it like this. So this should run the exact same way. So if we did 3, 4, it'll just output the exact same way. But instead of outputting it from the function, we're actually returning that value C and then printing it from main. And then we could also declare a variable to store that return. So we could just say C from main would equal Pythag right here. Oops, one too many parentheses. And then if I print C from main, it'll work the exact same way. So if I do 3, 4, it prints 5. So it really depends how your program flow is going, what you want to return, or if you want to do a return. And that's something, it really just depends on the situation. You know, there's no one way to skin a cat or anything like that. So I just wanted to show you how to do these things, just from an example like this. And what makes this really easy though, is now instead of having all of this code, like if we wanted to call Pythag, let's say we needed to call it 10 times. We don't need to rewrite this line 10 times. We can just call Pythag. So it just makes a programmer's life a lot easier to use functions. You will see a lot more examples of functions in my videos in the future. So if you don't totally understand this, it's okay. You'll definitely pick it up as we go through more uses of this, more use cases of functions. But I just wanted to give you a little introduction into how to use these. But at this point, the code is functioning how I want it to. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my GitHub. Example of functions, and push it up there. As always, I want to take a second to say thank you. I will put the link to the GitHub repo in the video description, and I'll also put a link to my Discord server. If you have any questions, comments, want to get in contact with me or other Python developers, it's a great resource to you. Once again, thanks for watching.